Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
Today, we're diving into a fascinating intersection, and
Yeah.
I think our listeners are really going to love this one. We're going to be weaving together the Enneagram, and specifically its core laws with philosophical concepts that resonate across various schools of thought. Buckle up, because we're about to uncover some really mind-bending connections.
I love it when we do that.
So
Yeah.
I know that we're both very familiar with the Enneagram symbol,
Yeah.
but for our listeners who maybe aren't, let's just take a minute to break down this symbol that's so central to this system.
Absolutely.
So we have the circle, the triad, and the hexagon,
Yep.
each embodying one of the Enneagram's fundamental laws.
Precisely.
So
Yeah.
let's start with the circle,
Okay.
which represents the law of one,
Right.
pointing to the unity and interconnectedness of all things.
It's that profound sense of oneness.
Right.
Beneath the surface level, a concept that so many spiritual and philosophical traditions have been grappling with for centuries.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how
Yeah.
this seemingly simple symbol can point to such a profound truth
Absolutely.
that everything is ultimately interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the hexagon,
Okay.
representing the law of seven, which speaks to the cyclical nature of time, the patterns and repetitions that shape our lives.
Like that ever-spinning wheel of samsara in Buddhism.
Oh, that's a great comparison, samsara.
Yay!
Constantly turning,
Yes.
bringing us through the same cycles of experience over and over again.
Exactly. Samsara beautifully illustrates this law. It's the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, fueled by our desires and attachments. A concept that you find echoed in various forms across so many different cultures and philosophies.
And it's not just a spiritual idea, right?
Yep, not at all.
We see this law of seven reflected in physics as well, with the concept of entropy, which is that tendency for systems to move towards disorder over time.
Right. Everything breaks down, energy dissipates. It's a constant reminder of that impermanence that we observe all around us.
Yeah, and then there's that famous quote by Heraclitus, the pre-Socratic philosopher.
Oh, yes.
You cannot step into the same river twice.
Such a powerful image.
So true,
Oh,
right? It speaks to this transient nature of reality,
exactly.
reminding us that even when we try to grasp onto something solid, it's already slipping through our fingers.
It's like trying to hold on to water.
Exactly.
It just flows right through your hands.
Okay, so we've got this sense of constant change, impermanence with the law of seven,
Yeah.
but then we have the law of one embodied by the circle,
Right.
which is pointing to something completely different.
Okay.
Eternity, stillness, a sense of underlying unity. So how do we reconcile these two seemingly contradictory forces?
That is a fascinating paradox.
It is.
And that's what I find so brilliant about the Enneagram is that it doesn't shy away from those paradoxes.
Right.
It embraces them.
It does.
So the law of one, for instance, finds its parallel in the Buddhist concept of nirvana,
Oh, okay.
a state of being beyond those limitations of time and space, a state of perfect unity and peace.
And that's not just an Eastern concept, right?
Oh, not at all.
We see very similar ideas in Western philosophy, particularly with thinkers like Parmenides,
Yes.
who argued for the existence of a single, unchanging, eternal being, suggesting that true reality is unchanging and that all of our perceptions of change are merely illusions.
Exactly. And even modern physics, with its law of conservation of energy, suggests this kind of fundamental permanence
Right.
underlying all of this flex.
So energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed.
Right. It speaks to a deeper continuity beneath the surface level of all this change.
Okay, so how do we bridge the gap between these two seemingly opposing forces? The eternal stillness of the law of one and the constant change of the law of seven.
It's where the triad comes in.
Okay, representing the law of three.
Precisely.
All right, so tell me more about that.
So the law of three, with its focus on that dynamic interplay of action, provides the key to understanding how the eternal gives rise to the temporal. It offers a framework for reconciling these seemingly paradoxical truths.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can you give us an example of how that works?
Sure. I think there's no better illustration of this than the Big Bang itself.
Oh, the Big Bang, okay.
Yeah, so that initial singularity,
Right.
pure potentiality, aligns perfectly with the law of one.
Okay, so we're in that state of pure oneness.
Because
Everything is unified.
Right.
But then from that singularity, the universe is born,
Right.
expanding, evolving, giving rise to stars, galaxies, and eventually life itself.
That's the law 7 in action.
Right, unfolding over time.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Good.
So the Big Bang represents that initial unity of the law of one, and then the subsequent evolution of the universe, the expansion, all of that.
Yeah.
That's the law of 7 playing out.
The unfolding.
And it's the law of 3 that helps us understand how that transition happened.
Exactly.
How we went from this state of pure potentiality to the dynamic, ever-changing universe that we experience.
Exactly. It's a beautiful dance between these forces.
Okay, so can you give us another way to conceptualize this relationship between the law of 1 and the law of 7, and how the law of 3 acts as this bridge?
Sure. I think we can look at it through the lens of Kant's philosophy.
Okay.
Specifically, his concepts of noumenon and phenomenon.
All right, so remind us what those are.
Yeah, so the noumenon represents the thing in itself, the eternal, unchanging reality that exists beyond our perception.
Okay.
And then you have the phenomenon, which is our subjective experience of the noumenon, filtered through our senses, shaped by time and space.
Okay.
So it's how we experience that underlying reality.
So the law of 3 is like the bridge between these two realms,
Precise.
showing us how the eternal and unchanging can give rise to that dynamic and ever-changing reality that we experience.
Exactly.
Wow, this is fascinating stuff.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, how does this reconciliation of the eternal and the temporal play out in different realms of human experience?
Well, we see it everywhere.
I bet we do.
In religion, science,
Okay.
even in ancient mystery traditions.
We've already touched on some Buddhist concepts.
We have.
So maybe let's start with religion and spirituality.
Sure.
One example that comes to mind for me is the Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism.
Ah, yes, the Bodhisattva.
Yeah.
They embody this beautifully achieving enlightenment,
Okay.
which aligns with the law of one.
Yeah.
But out of compassion, they choose to remain engaged in the world, helping others achieve liberation.
Wow, that's a perfect illustration
Yeah.
of how the eternal can manifest and act within the temporal realm.
Exactly.
It's like they've transcended the limitations of time and space, but they choose to come back and help others.
Out of love and compassion.
Wow.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say that Christ's incarnation in Christianity represents a very similar concept?
Absolutely. The divine, the eternal entering the realm of the human, the temporal,
Yeah.
to bridge that gap.
It's amazing how these themes recur
Yeah,
across
yeah.
different spiritual traditions.
Right.
This idea of a unifying force
Yeah.
that connects us to something larger than ourselves,
Mhm.
while simultaneously recognizing the reality of our individual experiences within this flow of time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're seeing how this interplay of the eternal and the temporal,
Right.
mediated by the law of 3,
Mm-hmm.
plays out in these spiritual and philosophical contexts.
Uh-huh.
But what about science?
Oh.
Can we find echoes of these Enneagram laws in the realm of scientific inquiry as well?
We certainly can. And what's fascinating is how the Enneagram's wisdom seems to anticipate some of the discoveries of modern science.
Oh, really?
But before we dive into that, I think it's worth highlighting this experience that many scientists, particularly physicists, describe,
Okay.
which is this sense of cosmic feeling.
Cosmic feeling.
Yes, it's a profound experience of unity with the universe. A recognition that we're all interconnected and part of something much vaster than ourselves.
So it's almost like they're tapping into that law of one reality,
Yeah.
experiencing that interconnectedness firsthand through their scientific work.
You could say that?
And we even see this drive toward unity
Yes.
reflected in their scientific pursuits.
Absolutely.
Think of Einstein,
Oh, yeah.
who spent a significant portion of his later years searching for a unified field theory,
Right.
a way to connect all the fundamental forces of the universe.
It's that search for that underlying unity
Yeah.
that connects everything.
That the law of one points towards.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Mhm.
Even in the realm of hard science,
Yes.
there seems to be this underlying drive
Mm-hmm.
to understand how seemingly disparate phenomena are interconnected,
Right?
to find that underlying unity.
Yeah.
But what about ancient philosophies?
Oh, absolutely.
Did they grapple with these concepts as well?
In fact, some ancient philosophies, particularly those associated with mystery traditions, offer really intriguing insights
Okay.
into this interplay of the eternal and the temporal.
Like,
Take, for instance, the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece.
oh, the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yes.
Those were shrouded in so much secrecy.
They were.
I don't really know exactly what went on,
Right.
but they sound fascinating.
They do.
Tell us what we do know.
So we know that participants underwent these initiation rituals
Okay.
that reportedly led to these profound experiences of unity and transcendence.
Wow, so they were really tapping into
There was some
something deeper.
Exactly, a deeper reality.
And it's believed that entheogens
Yes,
may have played a role in inducing these transformative states.
possibly.
But regardless of whether entheogens were used or not,
Yeah.
the core purpose seems to have been connecting with a deeper reality,
Right.
experiencing a sense of oneness that transcended the limitations of individual perception.
Exactly. It was about breaking free from those limitations.
Wow. So these ancient mystery traditions were also exploring ways to bridge the gap between the eternal and the temporal,
Mm-hmm.
to connect with that underlying unity that the law of one points towards.
Precisely.
It makes you wonder, with all of these examples from various fields and traditions, does the Enneagram prioritize one law over the other?
That's a crucial question. And the answer is no.
Okay.
The Enneagram doesn't favor one law over another.
It's not like one
No,
is better than the other.
Exactly.
Or, more important,
They aren't competing forces, but complementary perspectives on the same reality.
okay, so it's more like they're both equally valid,
Precisely.
and they're just offering different ways of looking at the same thing.
Exactly. Much like those Fourier transformations in mathematics.
Hold on, Fourier transformations.
Yeah.
You've got my attention now.
Okay.
How do Fourier transformations relate to the Enneagram?
Well, think about it this way. With a Fourier transformation, you can represent the same data in different ways, each offering a unique perspective.
Okay.
Neither representation is inherently superior.
Right.
They just illuminate different aspects of the same information. And the laws of 1 and 7 are similar,
Okay.
and that they provide different lenses through which to view reality.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
Good.
So the law of one helps us to see the interconnectedness, the underlying unity of all things, reminding us that despite all of our surface level differences, we're all ultimately part of something much larger than ourselves.
Precisely. It allows us to tap into that sense of oneness that so many mystics and philosophers have described throughout history.
But then we have the law of seven,
Right.
which helps us to make sense of the flow of time,
Mm-hmm.
the cyclical patterns, the constant change that shapes our experience.
Yes, it's about understanding the rhythms of life,
Hmm.
the ebb and flow of energy, the dance between creation and destruction.
And the Enneagram and its wisdom
Yeah.
integrates both of these perspectives, acknowledging the validity of both the eternal and the temporal. It's not about choosing one over the other,
Right.
but rather recognizing the dynamic interplay between these forces.
Oh, absolutely.
That's so powerful.
It is.
And it brings us to perhaps the most crucial question of all.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for us as individuals?
Right.
How can understanding these laws and their philosophical parallels help us to navigate the complexities of life?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. I mean, we can talk about these grand philosophical concepts,
Yeah.
but how do we apply them to our everyday lives, our struggles, our relationships, our own personal journeys of growth and transformation?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that we are all subject to these universal laws.
Right.
Whether we're aware of them or not.
Whether we like it or not.
They're shaping our experiences, influencing our perceptions, even if we're operating on autopilot.
So it's almost like these laws are operating in the background, whether we're conscious of them or not.
Exactly.
But once we become conscious of these underlying patterns,
Yes.
that's when the real magic happens.
Yes. That's when we can start to work with them.
So it's about developing a deeper awareness of how these laws are operating within us,
Exactly.
how they're influencing our thoughts, our emotions,
Yes.
our behaviors.
Precisely.
And that awareness can be incredibly empowering.
It can.
I mean, for instance, recognizing the cyclical nature of things.
Yes.
The law of seven in action can help us to approach challenges with more patience and resilience.
Absolutely.
Because when we understand that setbacks are inevitable,
Right.
that things ebb and flow,
Uh-huh.
we're less likely to get caught in despair or frustration when things don't go our way.
Exactly.
It's like knowing that winter will eventually give way to spring.
Yes.
Even when things feel dark and cold,
Yeah.
there's that promise of renewal,
Right.
a new cycle beginning.
Exactly.
And on the flip side, connecting with the law of one,
Mm-hmm.
that sense of unity and interconnectedness
Yeah.
can help us to foster greater compassion and empathy. Because when we recognize that we're all part of the same fabric of existence,
Right.
we're less likely to see others as separate or different from ourselves.
It dissolves the illusion of separateness
Hmm.
and allows us to connect with that deeper sense of shared humanity.
You know, it's interesting because when we talk about compassion and empathy,
Yeah.
it often feels like a moral imperative.
Right.
Like we should be compassionate. We should be empathetic.
Be a good person.
Right. But what you're suggesting is that it's not just about being a good person,
No.
but rather about aligning ourselves with a fundamental truth of existence,
Yes.
a truth that the Enneagram so beautifully articulates.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness.
And this brings us back to the Enneagram's practical application in our lives
Okay.
by understanding our own Enneagram type
Right.
and its relationship to these universal laws.
Yes.
We gain a deeper understanding of our strengths, our weaknesses, and the patterns that keep us stuck.
Exactly.
So it's not just about knowing your type.
No.
It's about understanding the underlying motivations and fears that are driving your behavior,
Right.
how those patterns relate to these larger forces that are at play.
It's about seeing the bigger picture.
It's like we're looking at the Enneagram through this multidimensional lens, seeing it not just as a personality typology,
Right.
but as a map of consciousness itself.
Exactly.
Wow, and that level of self-awareness can be incredibly transformative.
It can be life-changing.
Allows us to make more conscious choices,
Yeah.
to step out of those reactive patterns that keep us stuck, and to align ourselves with these universal principles in a way that supports our well-being and allows us to live more fulfilling lives.
Absolutely.
But it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination.
it is an ongoing process.
There's always more to learn,
Yes.
more to explore, more to discover about ourselves and our place in this universe.
Exactly. It's about staying curious.
Staying curious,
and open to new insights.
embracing the mystery,
The paradox.
the ever-unfolding nature of truth itself.
Beautifully said.
And with that in mind, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question to ponder
Okay.
as we move towards the end of our deep dive today.
All right.
Does exploring these philosophical connections change how you understand your own Enneagram type? How might recognizing these universal principles influence your perception of the world and your place within it?
It's something to really reflect on
It is.
and see how it resonates with your own experience.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up part 1 of this deep dive.
It's good.
We'll be back in just a moment with part 2, where we'll continue this exploration of the Enneagram and its philosophical connections.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of our deep dive into the Enneagram and its fascinating connections to philosophy.
Glad to be back.
So before the break, we were talking about the Eleusinian mysteries
Right. Those ancient Greek rituals.
and how they seem to be all about connecting with a deeper reality.
Exactly. About transcending the limitations of ordinary perception.
And it makes you wonder if these ancient traditions were onto something.
It really does. They were exploring the nature of consciousness, the mysteries of existence.
And what's so striking is how these ancient ideas resonate so deeply with the Enneagram.
The Enneagram is like a modern-day mystery school in a way.
I like that. It's a system that invites us to go deeper, to explore the hidden dimensions of ourselves and the universe.
And just like those ancient initiates, we can use the Enneagram as a tool for transformation.
A way to connect with our true nature
Our essence.
and to live more authentic and fulfilling lives.
Precisely.
So, with all of that said,
Yeah.
I think it's time to shift our focus to the practical applications of these ideas.
Okay, that's good.
Because, let's be honest, we can talk about these grand philosophical concepts all day long.
Right.
But what really matters is how we can apply them to our everyday lives.
Absolutely. It's about making these ideas relevant to our own personal journeys.
So let's start with something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Okay.
We live in a world that's constantly changing.
Right. Nothing stays the same.
And for many of us, that can be really unsettling.
It can be. It can create a lot of anxiety and fear.
So how can the Enneagram help us to navigate change more effectively?
Well, I think the key is to recognize that change is inevitable.
It's part of life.
It's woven into the very fabric of existence.
And trying to resist change is ultimately futile.
It's like swimming against the current.
You're just going to exhaust yourself.
Exactly. So the first step is to surrender to the flow of life.
To accept that change is going to happen whether we like it or not.
And once we've done that,
Yeah.
we can start to work with change rather than against it.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, one way is to cultivate a sense of detachment
Detachment
from outcomes.
Okay.
So often we get attached to things being a certain way.
Right.
We have a plan.
We have expectations,
And when things don't go according to plan,
which they often don't.
we get upset.
We get frustrated.
We feel like
So detachment is about letting go of those rigid expectations.
Exactly. It's about being open to different possibilities.
To allowing things to unfold naturally.
Without forcing them.
And think this is where the Enneagram can be really helpful.
How so?
Because by understanding our Enneagram type,
Yes.
we can start to see the patterns that keep us stuck.
The ways in which we resist change.
The ways in which we try to control things.
The fears that hold us back.
Exactly.
So, for example, some Enneagram types are more prone to anxiety and worry.
Right.
They might resist change because they're afraid of the unknown.
So for those types, detachment might be about learning to trust the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
About letting go of the need to control everything.
Whereas other Enneagram types might be more resistant to change because they're afraid of losing something.
Like security.
Or comfort.
Or familiarity.
So for those types, detachment might be about learning to embrace the new.
About being open to new experiences.
About seeing change as an opportunity for growth. So it's really about tailoring our approach to detachment to our own individual Enneagram type.
Precisely.
And I think another key to navigating change effectively
Okay.
is to remember that we're not alone in this process.
Right. We're all in this together.
Everyone experiences change.
Everyone faces challenges.
And it's okay to ask for help,
It's okay to lean on others.
to build a support system.
A community of people who can help us through those difficult times.
And I think this is another area where the Enneagram can be really valuable
How so?
because it can help us to understand the different ways in which people cope with change.
Right. Some people need to talk things out.
Others need time alone.
Some need practical support.
Others need emotional support.
And by understanding those differences,
Yeah.
we can be more compassionate and understanding, more supportive.
More helpful.
Exactly.
So the Enneagram can really be a tool for building stronger relationships,
It can help us to connect with others on a deeper level
to appreciate our differences.
and to support each other through life's inevitable changes.
Wow. This is really powerful stuff.
It is. It's about recognizing that change is a natural part of life
Embracing it.
and using it as an opportunity for growth and transformation.
And I think it's important to remember that change doesn't have to be scary.
It doesn't.
It can actually be really exciting.
It can be an adventure.
A chance to discover new things about ourselves.
To learn new skills.
To step outside of our comfort zones.
To become the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
So let's embrace change.
Let's ride the waves of life.
And see where they take us.
Beautiful.
And with that, I think we'll take another quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with the final part of our deep dive, where we'll continue exploring the practical applications of the Enneagram and its connections to philosophy.
See you soon. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive,
We're in the home stretch now.
where we'll continue to explore the practical applications of the Enneagram and how it connects to these bigger philosophical ideas.
I'm excited to see where we go with this.
Me too. So before the break, we were talking about change
Right. How to navigate it effectively.
and how the Enneagram can help us to understand our own unique responses to change.
Yeah. And to become more skillful in how we approach it.
And I think it's important to remember that change isn't just something that happens to us.
No, it's not.
It's something that we can actively participate in.
We can choose how we respond to it.
We can use it as an opportunity to grow and evolve.
Exactly.
So how can we do that? How can we use the Enneagram to become more conscious creators of our own lives?
Well, I think it starts with understanding our own Enneagram type
Okay.
and the patterns that keep us stuck.
The things that we tend to do.
Yeah, the ways in which we limit ourselves.
The ways in which we sabotage ourselves.
Exactly.
So once we understand those patterns,
Yeah.
we can start to make different choices.
Right. We can break free from those old habits.
We can create new possibilities for ourselves.
And this is where the Enneagram can be so powerful.
It can be like a roadmap for personal growth.
It can show us the way.
So for example, let's say you're someone who tends to be very critical of yourself.
Okay.
And you find that this self-criticism is holding you back from pursuing your dreams.
Yeah, it's keeping you stuck in a cycle of negativity.
So the Enneagram can help you to understand why you do this.
Right. What's the underlying motivation for that self-criticism?
Maybe it's a fear of failure.
Maybe it's a need to feel in control.
Maybe it's a belief that you're not good enough.
And once you understand that underlying motivation,
Yeah.
you can start to address it.
You can start to challenge those negative beliefs.
You can start to develop more self-compassion.
And as you do that,
Mm.
you'll find that you're more able to create the life that you want.
You'll be free to pursue your passions,
To take risks.
to live more authentically.
And that's just one example.
Right.
The Enneagram can be applied to so many different areas of life.
To our relationships,
Our career,
our spiritual growth.
our overall well-being.
It's a tool that can help us to become more conscious and intentional in every aspect of our lives.
And I think that's ultimately what this deep dive has been all about.
Yeah.
It's about understanding ourselves and the universe in a deeper way.
Seeing the connections between everything.
Recognizing that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
And that we have the power to create the lives that we want.
It's been an amazing journey exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise.
And I want to thank our listeners for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
May your journey of self-discovery continue to unfold in beautiful and unexpected ways.
May it be so.